Uh, I'd like to call the June County Commission meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda, we have the invocation and pledge. The invocation by Commissioner Greg Lawrence and the pledge by Commissioner Kathy Danner. Please stand.
Let us pray. Father, we come before you tonight thanking you for the privilege of praying to you and asking your blessings over our meeting tonight. We pray that we will make wise decisions as we strive to work in the best interest of the people of Williamson County. In a few moments, we will pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, where we stand as one nation, under God, indivisible. But we can look around America today and we can see that there is much division in America. There are racial divisions, there are political divisions, and socioeconomic divisions. We pray that you would heal them. I pray that you would restore a high level of respect and civility in our public discourse. And may those of us who are leaders in our community set the example. I pray that you would restore righteousness in America. The more righteousness we have, the fewer sheriff's deputies, jail cells, and court employees we need. And if we were completely righteous, we would need none of these things. So, Lord, make us righteous. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Join me in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next we have roll call. If you push your present button and confirm. All right, record the roll, Ms. Sanders.
I have 23 present, 1 absent, Commissioner Herbert absent.
Let's see. Commissioner Lawrence, you got. Well. Yeah, there we go. Okay, all right. Very good. Next, on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our May 8th, 2017 County Commission meeting, and these were mailed to each commissioner. I'll entertain a motion. Who? Okay, Commissioner Little and then Commissioner Chalfant. All in favor of those as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next we have citizens communication. Okay. We have 10 people signed up to speak, and our rules have a 30-minute time limit, so each person has 3 minutes. When there's about 15 seconds, I'll inform you. So if you'll come forward and state your name and your address for the record, and hopefully we don't have a lot of duplicates on the same thing. First one we have is Tracy Miller.
Hello, I'm Tracy Miller. I live at 1209 Devons Drive, Brentwood, Tennessee. I'm pleased to get a chance to address the commission today. I want to start out on the right footing and say that I assume and currently understand you all to be honorable men and women doing your best for the county. Okay? I'm willing to fight to maintain that sense of who you are, and thus to describe me as someone who wants to shut down the hospital is beneath us. We all know that'll never happen. In the end, at the road of evaluation, if selling the hospital is something you decide to do, some private hospital company will purchase that certificate of need, and the care for the sick, who I do not hate, let's keep our opinions up here, are going to be taken care of. Nor will the good doctors and nurses end out on the street. So we all need to just calm down. But of all the accusations and misinformation and character assassination that goes on, perhaps the worst is describing this proposal that's going to be issued tonight as an effort to sell the hospital. It is not. Okay? It's an evaluation, pure and simple. In the end, it might be decided that the hospital is too valuable to sell or not valuable enough, or that the constituents might be better served if it were leased, or maybe once the evaluation is complete and after a lengthy subsequent debate, it might be best for Williamson County to sell the hospital. We don't know. And therein lies the problem. We don't know. And until you're willing to honestly and openly evaluate what is best for Williamson County, which is your job, by the way, all that is left is guesses, suspicions, accusations. So let me repeat it in different words. The only honorable thing is to commit to an open evaluation of what is best. And let's not get sidetracked by pointing to an artificial roadblock that's put into place to prevent us from having that evaluation. That can be just as easily removed as it was to put in effect. And finally, the last thing I wanted to say, keeping ourselves up on this level, those of you who have a bias, a conflict of interest, like if you served or are serving on the medical center board, if you've received any kind of salary or reimbursement from medical center or its affiliates, if your immediate family or spouse or whoever are employed there, if you have any kind of connection that prevents you from doing an honest and open evaluation, yes, it's good that you acknowledge it. But the most important and honorable thing to do is abstain. That's why you've got that third option on your consoles. It is for those moments when your own personal desire prevents you from completely and openly doing your jobs. Thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your willingness to weigh all options for our county and our schools. That's it.
Thank you. Next. Next, we have Cindy Miller.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Miller, Devons Drive, Brentwood, District 6, Commissioners Ford and Webb. Good evening. Thank you for your service and the opportunity to speak to you tonight. As a resident of Williamson County since 1979, I'm writing in regard to the massive amount of money needed to fund Williamson County schools over the next 5 to 10 years. With projections of 15 to 23 schools needed to be built and each school costing $30 to $80 million each to build, a requested $500 million for brick and mortar alone, the Commission cannot keep turning to the taxpayers to fund this growth. I'm requesting that a task force be created to study the Williamson Medical Center to assess its value, to the revenue and its expenses, and the trends in the market. The fact that revenue is up but profits are down over 50% is troubling. Please vote yes on the referendum presented by Commissioner Lawrence tonight. Also, I feel that there should be more of a burden of growth placed on those creating the growth, those moving in, and the developers. If families are moving here for the schools, as argued, then they will not mind paying the $30,000 to $50,000 per home to build the schools they need coming here. Again, I respectfully ask that you vote yes on Commissioner Lawrence's resolution tonight, and that you consider revenue stream options other than increasing the property taxes. With the anticipated growth, where does it end? Again, thank you for your service to the community.
Next, we have David Huddleston.
Thank you. I'll be quick. The county had a 15% tax increase about a year ago.
Mr. Huddleston, if you'll, for the record, state your name and address, I appreciate it.
My name is David Huddleston. I live at 1218 Knox Valley Drive in Brentwood. I believe the county had a 15% tax increase about a year ago. Now there's talk of more big property tax increases. I do think that you should consider all alternatives. I think a lot of people are going to be upset if there's another big property tax increase. People tend to not pay a lot of attention until big things happen. My understanding is that a home in the county has to be appraised at $700,000 to pay for the cost of one student. I think that number's right, and I think that just actually pays for the school cost of $3,700 and not for the other county cost. So if a house has to be appraised at least $700,000, then any house that is less than that and has students is basically being subsidized by somebody. I'm just pointing this out because it seems like it's relevant to the mathematics. Thank you.
Next we have Paul Warren.
Good evening. My name is Paul Warren. I'm a resident at 1804 Harpeth River Drive in Brentwood, Tennessee. I have several specific questions and statements I hope are addressed later. First off, while this may be unpopular for me to say, it seems to be more of a question of when our property taxes, among others, will be raised, at what rate, rather than if. And so I wanted to ask how residents can stay updated on that. Most of the information I've received speculated, and I am aware that you can go to WCES.edu and look that up if there are other resources. I want to ask if y'all had a direct recommendation rather than us just looking at Facebook or relying on the media. Another one is, while I'm very happy that we've got 94% graduation rate, we're $900 less per pupil on our students. There is a lot of concern from our residents over time since we're projected to grow so rapidly. We've got about 38,000 students right now, and we're supposed to be growing 10,000 plus any given 5, 10 years, 15 years. So we're going to be at about 51 plus thousand and 2024 or so. And I keep hearing this demand for a feasibility study, but I haven't really heard where that's coming from. If you guys could just direct us generally where to get that information so that we're not misinformed. And then lastly, is there a way for citizens to contribute more information to ways we could save on our schools, whether that's best practices financially, and how we can get that information in a streamlined way? So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is it? Okay, Natalie Perry? Is that right? Is it Pierce or?
Pierce.
Pierce, I'm sorry.
I live at 3351 Boyd Mill Pike. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Natalie Pierce. I'm simply here to ask that anyone on the Commission who is directly or indirectly connected to Williamson County Medical Center to please abstain from the vote on the feasibility study of the county property owned by we, the taxpayers. Commissioner Walton, Commissioner Chalfant, Commissioner Williams are all on the Board of Trustees of this hospital. Commissioner Little's brother is the chairman of the hospital. Commissioner Smith is compensated directly as the director of the hospital foundation. This evening, you will propose a nomination for Dana Osbrooks to be nominated to the Board of Trustees as well. She is the current chairman of the Budget Committee, as well as recently hired as the attorney for Williamson County Schools. 70% of the county budget goes to schools, therefore that pays her salary. Robert's Rules of Order specifies that no member should vote on a question in which he has direct personal interest not common to other members of this organization. And I'm very well aware of the statement of conflict that you will read before you vote. I want you to take time to remind all of you that you were elected to vote for your constituents, not your conscience. Thank you.
Next, we have Pam Prevost.
Hello, I'm Pam Prevost. I live at 6216 Bell Reeve Drive in Brentwood. I want to thank each and every one of you commissioners for all your hard work and dedication to this county and everything you do to continue to make it a wonderful place to live. I'm very grateful. I have lived in Williamson County for the past 39 years, and my husband and I moved here for the quality of the great school system, the low taxes, and the wonderful quality of life. I've seen many, many changes over the past 4 decades, most of them good, excluding the traffic issues. I think we can all agree that we all would like to have a really great school system. We want it to be top-notch and for it to continue to offer a first quality education to all of our students. I think we can all agree that we want a first-class hospital. We want the hospital that provides excellent care for all of our loved ones and ourselves and all the citizens of this county. I hope we can all agree that we would like to see our taxes be as low as possible for all of those who live in this county, and especially for those who have been here and are retiring and living on fixed incomes, certainly for the many incredible school teachers and staff that provide the great quality of education for our students, as well as the nurses, doctors, technicians, aides that provide such an excellent health care for us locally. Not to mention our dedicated firemen, police officers, and others who provide the services that help keep us safe and secure in our county. Many of these essential providers are citizens that would struggle to continue to live here in this county with continued and massive tax increases. They would struggle to pay for their mortgages and provide for their families. These are the worker bees of our county, and they should be greatly considered by this board before there are more tax increases. This governing board owes it to all the citizens of this county to make sure that we are all able to continue living in this county that we love so much. So how do we accomplish these goals? How do we have great schools, first quality hospital, low taxes, and a wonderful quality of life? We need to do studies and explore all the possibilities of different streams of revenue. We also need to have greater transparency in our school budget. There are many ways to generate revenue, and they should all be studied, including whether to keep Williamson County Hospital or whether to sell it. Maybe we should keep it. Most people do not know that the citizens of Williamson County own the hospital. Most citizens do not know that right now our county has a debt of over $500 million. No wonder
Pam,
we have a problem
15
funding.
seconds.
I'm almost done. No wonder we have a problem funding the new schools and renovations that we need. We are in debt and we have a revenue problem. If the hospital could be sold for a profit of $500 million or more, if most people employed could keep their jobs, if the quality of care could be as good or even better than it is now, wouldn't that be a good idea? Isn't that an idea worth studying? Don't you owe it to each and every citizen in this county to at least do a feasibility study to find out if that is something to pursue? Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Scott Collins.
Members of the Commission, Mayor, my name is Scott Collins, 7310 Cox Run Court, Fairview, City Manager, City of Fairview. Just to switch gears just quickly, I came before you a few weeks ago or a few meetings ago to let you know that we look forward to becoming a better partner with Williamson County. I come to you tonight to let you understand that we were sincere in that effort, and we want to bring some information to you as we move forward. First off, before I speak, we have Commissioner Derek Burks with the city with us tonight. The things that you do are important. Not to get involved in the previous discussions, I'm not educated on that, but I think everything we've heard tonight indicates the difficult task that you have. So as we move forward and we speak, we want to let you know, first, we appreciate that. Secondly, we understand it, and thank you for your time to serve. We know it's a difficult job. Having said that, there are some presentations that we would like to make and some information from Fairview that we would like to present to you. As I said, we mentioned that we wanted to be a better partner with Williamson County for a variety of sources and reasons. I brought to you tonight a check, the first of two, for $25,000 each. I have that check with me for a total of $50,000 that we would like to present to the Commission for investment in the Fairview Baseball Park. We want to move forward with some work that we need to do there. We met with Commissioner Jones, Mr. Hampton a few weeks ago for some needs that we have in the baseball park. We all agreed that those needs are there, but we wanted to make sure that you understood our effort was sincere in those partnerships. So before I leave tonight, and I will leave right after this meeting, no disrespect to the board, but I had to be at a commission meeting in baseball. I chose to do both, so we'll be running out the door. But I'll hand deliver the first $25,000 check here in just a moment to let you know about some future commitments that we have from the City of Fairview, specifically as it relates to part of the topics we have tonight. In the current year's budget, which expires on June 30, we invested $140,000 into the Fairview schools. Fairview High School, Fairview Middle School, Westwood Elementary, and Fairview Elementary each received a sum of money of approximately $35,000 for some projects that they needed to have done. We move forward with that. We're glad to do that. As we move into fiscal year 2017-18, which begins on July 1, we're going to invest another $335,000 into the schools or the school systems. We will direct fund $135,000 into our local schools for programs and projects that each of those schools deem to be necessary as they move forward. The remaining $200,000 is an allocation of the city for the press box to be constructed at the football field at Fairview High School. We know that these are difficult tasks. We know that times are lean, and we face the same budgets as everyone else does. But we want you to know that as we move forward, we are very privileged to be a part of Williamson County. We're very privileged to have the partnerships we have with Williamson County, and we want you to know that we recognize that and look forward to being a better partner as we move forward. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do, and we certainly appreciate the future that you have before us.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have Russell Little.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By the grace of God, we had a buffer between the Sell the Hospital study group and myself. I am Russell Little, 304 Juliana Circle in Franklin. You're representatives of citizens who have been the beneficiary of a vision that was started by our grandfather's generation. It took many hours of work and study in order to figure out what was the best way to fulfill this vision so that it could serve the citizens of Williamson County, our children, and the generations that follow us. There are 12 volunteer trustees on the Williamson Medical Center board. 2 are physicians, 1 is the county mayor, the other 9, 1 is in finance, 1 is in real estate, 1 is in construction and development, 1 is in insurance, 1 is in engineering, 1 is in government, 1 is in nursing, 1 is in corporate sales, and hopefully we'll have 1 in law after tonight's meeting. The Tennessee Hospital Association recently had their annual conference, and we had 6 classes. In one of the classes, one of the speakers made this statement that said, hospitals are uniquely human interaction and engagement organizations. Human engagement and interaction organizations. This said a lot. And it's funny because when we were sitting in these classes, everything I was hearing was sort of through the lens of tonight's meeting. The fulfillment and the success of medical centers going forward is going to be centered around how well they are engaged with their doctors, patients, and the residents of the county. Our mission is first-class, caring, compassionate health care. Almost 200 times a month, we hear the Brahms lullaby that's rung throughout the building announcing a new birth at Williamson Medical Center. And while we do lots of surgeries and procedures, the front-end care, the loving, compassionate care comes forward when we're having to deal with the families when they've lost a loved one. So the bottom line argument tonight that's before you, each one of you, is that whether you want the healthcare decisions of our county to be done by someone whose bottom line is providing a return for their investors, or whether it's providing the precious care for a loved one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Tim McCorkle. Is that, say that right?
My name is Tim McCorkle. I reside at 3225 Boyd Mill Pike, Franklin, Tennessee. Most of that which I was going to say tonight has been said by two very articulate women. I would respond to the last gentleman and just say we're not quibbling with the hospital's care. It's just how that is managed. Every other hospital around this country is a private entity that do fine. They have to do fine or they'll go out of business. So I would just ask you as a group, there's been discussion on both sides of this, why not look at all the detail, gather all the facts, and just come to some kind of adjudicated ending? It's just, why not? Why would you not study it? That is like closing one's eyes to facts. And I find that odd in a group of male and female people at your age and caliber. And the last thing I was going to say is that there's one question that really I would love you people to address as individuals and as a complete board. And that is, what level of debt and what level of taxation trigger you to say enough? We need to look at other alternatives. We need to find other ways to reprioritize, just like every other family in this county. Why are you different? Thank you very much.
Next we have Laura Turner.
Laura Turner, 1108 Dickinson Lane, Franklin. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I represent Citizens for Old Natchez Trace. I'm here tonight to request that the planned turn lane from Sneed onto Old Natchez Trace be removed from the road improvements list that is required for the megadensity subdivision Stevens Valley being built on the Natchez Trace historic rural landscape. Our community is overwhelmingly pleased with the Williamson County School Board, who listened to citizens' concerns and made the decision to zone the students who aren't even here yet to Fairview schools. This will take a significant amount of traffic pressure off of Sneed Road, thus reducing traffic on the Old Natchez Trace. The Trace, built by United States soldiers in 1801 by order of President Thomas Jefferson, should be spared this turn lane, which would adversely affect its integrity. This road is not only a county treasure, but a state and national one as well. Residential growth does not pay for itself. We, the taxpayers, pay for it. At the very least, we can do our best not to harm history so that future generations will be able to appreciate and learn from it. And I was grateful to hear the comments from the Mayor of Fairview, because the majority, well over the majority of residential growth in this county is in the cities. And I think it's incumbent upon the cities to step up to the plate to help with the funding issues regarding our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes citizens' communications. Next, we have communications and messages. We have a late file resolution 6/17/34. If there's no objection, it's on your desk, and we'll hear that at the end of appropriations. So, huh? Yeah, and it's accepting the Fairview check. So, and also I would like to move up resolution 6/17/33 to right after consent agenda. So if there's no objections there, I think the majority of the crowd is here for that, and we'll move that on. So if there's no objections, I see none. And I believe that's all I have. Turn it over to the mayor. Oh, I'm sorry. We got a proclamation. from Commissioner Allsbrooks and Commissioner Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this is a proclamation of appreciation presented to Deputy Kevin Teague. Whereas Deputy Kevin Teague serves with Williamson County Sheriff's Office, he currently serves as the Bethesda Elementary School Resource Officer, or SRO, for Williamson County Schools. And whereas Deputy Teague has received first aid training with CPR skills, and whereas on May 16, 2017, while on duty at Bethesda Elementary School, Deputy Teague noticed Dallas, a first grade boy, in the lunchroom choking. And whereas immediately, Deputy Teague began administering CPR, including performing a modified Heimlich maneuver, dislodging 3 pieces of chicken from the child's throat, restoring his breathing. And whereas as a result of his quick thinking and heroic actions, Captain Mark Wainwright, along with Williamson County Sheriff Jeff Long, have credited Deputy Teague for administering life-saving assistance to this child, who following the incident was brought to the school nurse and later released, good as new. Now therefore be it resolved that Rogers Anderson, as Mayor of Williamson County, Tennessee, and members of the Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session this the 12th day of June, 2017, hereby express our appreciation to Deputy Kevin Teague.
Go ahead. Thank you, Commissioners, for the recognition, and naturally, we're extremely proud of Kevin for what he did. I also want to tell you, and I don't even know whether Kevin knows this or not, I received a telephone call from the National Association of School Resource Officers out of Washington, D.C., and he is going to receive the Presidential Medal for Valor from them for their heroic act.
All right. Now we have proclamation by Mayor Rogers Anderson.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner members, this is Amateur Radio Week, and you have a copy of this, and we have with us tonight, of course, Bill Jorgensen, all of you know, and Lewis Sharp, who is here with the We Cares. That's Williamson County Amateur Radio. And so let me read this proclamation if I could. More than 200 federally licensed amateur radio operators who reside in Williamson County are registered members of the Williamson County Amateur Radio Emergency Service, or We Cares. The members of We Cares have consistently demonstrated their commitment to public service by willingly volunteering their individual time and utilizing their personal radio equipment at no cost for the benefit of the citizens of Williamson County in order to provide a source of reliable radio communication support during those natural disasters or other public emergencies. Whereas in addition to their regular participation in local emergency communication training exercises, Williamson County Amateur Radio operators actively participate in annual nationwide field day communication exercises sponsored by the American Radio Relay League, the National Association for Amateur Radios. So on the field day exercise will take place on June 24th and 25th. And so by the powers that I have, we are recognizing and appreciating the hard work these men and women do on behalf of all of us during those emergencies. Before I turn the mic over either to Mr. Sharp or Mr. Jorgensen, let me say one thing, that we've really taken this on over the last 15 or short years and built up the numbers. A lot of youth are involved in it. For people that have got gray hair, you may remember the old crystal radios that we used to have as a boy growing up. This is part of that. But for you that have been in the military and have shortwave radios, and that's ... This is exactly what we have to do when there is no communications of the normal status. And so there's a way to bridge that, and through these men and women to give of their time and volunteer, and this is how we will be communicating in the event some natural disaster or calamity hits in our area. So thank you both gentlemen for this. Bill, are you going to speak?
I am, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chairman, I've got just a couple of notes. I'll be brief. Let me just say that WCARES started in Williamson County in 1998. Okay. In 2003, the Williamson County Commission approved a couple $1,000s to put up some repeaters and some communications at some of our tower sites to promote amateur radio in Williamson County. And the mayor said they bring their own equipment, which they do, but we put in a couple repeaters. And since, we'll fast forward a little bit to 2017, there's over 300 licensed amateur radio operators in Williamson County, and as the mayor stated in the proclamation, over 200 of those are involved in WCARES, volunteering their time and talents to the community that we live in, not just to Williamson County government, but to the community. Providing backup communications, training with our youth, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, working in the Emergency Operations Center, and other projects, and other planned events such as the fair. We can send email over amateur radio. We can do radio over IP. It's not just Morse code or CW. There's lots of new technologies that we can use over amateur radio. Let me just give you a snapshot of how many hours they're putting in. In 2016, WCARES put in 7,900 volunteer hours. And in the first quarter of 2017, they've already put in 1,465 volunteer hours to the community in Williamson County. And you can find out more information about WCARES at WCARES.org. And I know Louis would like to invite you all to a communications exercise we've got coming up. It's not a contest, it is an exercise, and he talked just a second about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and commissions. Appreciate this opportunity to invite all of you. We are having our largest, we call it an exercise, it's not a contest, but it is our largest annual exercise where our objective is to contact as many people as possible across all 50 states and all of the provinces of Canada. So the Canada and U.S., we have about 85 regions, I believe we usually contact. We do this via voice communications, long haul, of course, HF communications. We do it through digital means as well as the old Morse code. So we get an exercise of all of our equipment. And the good thing about the field day event is, like Bill just mentioned, is open to the public. So I'd like to say that you all here, both the county commissioners and the public as well, are invited to join us on June 24th from noon until Sunday at noon on the 25th. And you can see just exactly what we do, how we set up, and maybe even get to touch and play with a radio or two if you like. Thank you.
And Mayor Anderson. And Mayor Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the council, fellow Williamson Countyans, it's with great pleasure I'm going to make a presentation today. For some years now, we've had a civic organization that is named P38, and the name P38, if ham and lima beans with a B3 unit means anything to you, you'll know what a P38 is. It's a little can opener that used to come with sea rations. And at the time we were putting it together, we got such support from Mayor Anderson and from Mayor Moore that without it would not have been a success. And so I could go on and on about it, and I'll spare your time. But let me just say that on last month, there was a volunteer luncheon that was given at the fort by the 1st Brigade. We support the 1st Brigade and the 19th Air Support Operations Squadrons. And so the 1st Brigade had this volunteer recognition, and they were putting up the emblems of the various units. And at the end of it, they put us up there, and a little bit of heraldry here. This is the 1st Brigade is also known as Bastogne. They were the ones who were pinned down during the Battle of the Bulge. On here we have challenge coins. A challenge coin is when somebody reaches out, shakes a hand, and there's a coin in there, one of these things, and you've got to come back with one or there's some penalty. But in any event, one of the things you'll notice in every one of these is the club. That was during World War II. The members of the 1st Brigade would put a club, a playing card with a club on it, in their camouflage bands on their helmets. And the other brigades would use other playing cards. So 1st Brigade was the clubs, and that lends itself to a wonderful pun. And so you'll see that within all these clubs, you'll see the numbers of the units. And now this club has P38 in it. The commander of the 1st Brigade, with great pleasure, said, P38 is now in the club, and once you're in the club, you're in the club for life. And so we brought this home to give it to Mayor Anderson and to the county, and also we're going to make a presentation tomorrow to Mayor Moore in the BOMA, and then this is going to live in the Veterans Office here in the county building, where it will be seen by many veterans. And thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for all you've done.
Mr. Chairman, let me say something to John. Many of you may remember Art Health. He was involved in this organization getting it started. More simply, they spend a lot of money and time with our 101st Air Division in Clarksville with the spouses while the men are away at engaging in battle. Unfortunately, just this weekend, we lost 3 more men. And I think sometimes we forget about all of the hard war, hard stories, but there's 3 families left behind too. This organization, P38, works directly through and with those spouses, those widows, all in the 101st. They raise funds through a nonprofit organization that was set up to help offset some of these costs. It's unfortunate tonight we do receive it. That's the fortunate part, but the unfortunate part, there'll be 3 more young men or young women someplace else. And Mr. Chairman, I know we never do this. It's kind of out of context, but I think a special word should go to those 3 men and their families tonight. I think we need to take a moment of silence and acknowledge the freedoms that we have. They're very costly. And I know Matt and Bert and many others sitting here were veterans, such as myself, and we're all proud of those men and women. We just finished having a ceremony here a couple of weeks ago for our Memorial Day service for those men and women that gave the ultimate sacrifice. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman,
I
I'd
do
like
not
to
mind.
call
Thank
upon
you.
Matt. Matt's the just made major and just recently, and he served in the Middle East area. Many of us served in Vietnam and other areas, and I would ask Matt to say a quick prayer for those families, if you do not mind.
I do not. Commissioner Williams?
Lord, keep your arms around those families that have lost their loved ones here recently. Provide them comfort as they look to the future and mend those fences. And thank you for all the freedoms that you provide our country. And bless the servicemen that stand on the wall for us so that we can enjoy those freedoms. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Next, we have the legislative delegation. If you gentlemen would like to come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jack Johnson, State Senator for the 23rd District, representing Williamson County, and I'm pleased to be joined by my colleagues from the State House, Representatives Charles Sargent, Glenn Cassida, and Sam Whitson. We're here to recognize Williamson County as being one of only 12 counties in the state of Tennessee that received a perfect audit from the State Comptroller's Office. Annually, I think that deserves a round of applause. Annually, the comptroller, and sometimes more often, audits all 95 counties, or they are audited. There are some that are audited outside of the comptroller's office, but Williamson County was not only one of the 12 counties that received a perfect audit, but was the largest county to receive a perfect audit. And I think it's a real testament to Mayor Anderson and this county commission and all the fine people that manage the affairs of this county, and to receive that very, very important distinction. And so the comptroller presented us with some certificates, which we would like to present to you, coming from the Tennessee Comptroller of the Treasury. I'll read it. It's very brief. This certificate is proudly presented to Williamson County in recognition of its clean financial and compliance audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2016. The audit report completed by the Office of the Comptroller of the Treasury contains 0 findings and is an indication of the county's strong system of internal control and exemplary financial reporting in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles, signed Justin P. Wilson, Comptroller of the Treasury. And Mr. Chairman, we have 2 of these. Mayor Anderson, if you don't mind coming forward. We actually have 3, but we have 2 on our person. So we're going to present one to Mayor Anderson. If I could approach, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present one to you on behalf of the County Commission.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Yeah. I think you ought to have the school superintendent up here too. He calls them.
Well, let me say one thing. We also need Nina Graham up here. She's the Chief Financial Officer, and we have a copy, Nina, for you also. And thank you for the excellent job you do.
Mr. Chairman, while they're coming up here, I'd like for all the elected officials, you know, it's easy for me to stand up here and accept it, but you got the sheriff, you got the schools. Folks, this is trustee, Ms. Anderson sitting here on the front row. Every single elected, every single appointed, and the school superintendent, I don't know, I probably left out others. I think I picked up Leslie Holman. This isn't just the mayor's office. This is the entire county. And so thank you, guys, and appreciate it. Come over here. All right. The boss is speaking. Go over here.
Miss Elaine.
Come on, Miss Elaine. Come on, Sheriff.
Where's Karen? She's here, I know.
Karen.
Karen Paris. Oh.
Judge Guffey.
The sheriff gets called in there.
Judge Guffey. Thank you. All right. Moving on to reports of county offices, Mayor Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'll ask Nina to come up and kind of give a snapshot of the financial picture of the county. I'll make my report very quick tonight unless you all have a lot of questions after she gets through. Nina?
Thank you, Mayor, and everyone, and to the state delegate. It truly does take everyone working together and doing their part to receive a clean audit. So tonight in your packet, we have our normal reports for you this evening. Our April month-end report. We're tracking pretty well on target as in comparison to previous years for this time of year. You will notice down in the appropriations in the General Debt Service Fund and Rural Debt Service Fund, there are negative balances there. There are two resolutions coming before you tonight which will rectify those overages. And also this month, for the month of April, we collected a little over $1 million in our privilege tax fund. On our education impact fee that was implemented in March, through the end of April, we've collected a little over $785,000. Also tonight, our Cool Springs Marriott report for the month of April. We are receiving $36,074 from the Marriott. And I think Michael Sanders is here. He's the general manager and was going to give you a quarterly report if you don't have any further questions or any questions for me.
Any questions for Nina? Commissioner Ford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nina, when is the public hearing on the budget?
It is tomorrow evening at 5:30 in this room.
Tomorrow evening at 5:30 in this room, hearing on the public hearing, and the public will be allowed to speak at that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Lawrence? What?
I was just going to ask you about the solid waste deficit there. What is that about? 738,000.
Oh, in the top section or your revenue section, so a negative there is a good thing. That means we've collected a little more than that was budgeted.
Right. Okay.
So that is up, though. That is a good question. There were rate changes this year, so that fund has realized a little larger collections than previous years.
Okay.
Okay. One more. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Yeah. Hi, Nina. Congratulations. We have a resolution 6176, and it's a spending 20. I want to make sure I understand. It looks like it's $20,000 because of the Cool Springs Convention Center.
Okay.
So when I look at the profit and loss statement, it shows that we're $77,000, almost $78,000 in the positive.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we need the $20,000 here?
It's purely an accounting function. We have to track our revenues in a revenue line item, so you would see those in the revenue section, and this is the expenditure side. as we're approaching the end of the year, we have projections in May that there may be a loss of around 13 or 14,000, and hopefully a break even in June. At the beginning of the year, I appropriated $125,000 in there, so we would be coming close to that total.
So
And we
you're
would
trying to
just want-
project what you're going to need to finish the year, is that what you're
Right.
saying? So would it be accurate then to say that we're breaking even on the convention center?
Well,
Or we're projected to break even, like not a loss and not a profit?
I don't think we'll have a loss this year. It'd be a little bit less of a income than we received last year, but this is purely an accounting function so that that expenditure line item would not be in a negative at the end of the year.
Right,
And then anything unused, of course, would go back into the fund balance.
right, yeah. I was just trying to get a handle on whether we're making money or not on the convention center.
At this point in time, we are, and that's the long spreadsheet that you have with your monthly report.
But in 2 more months, we might not be, right? That's what you're
Well,
saying?
with their projections, I think we still will be having profits for this year. And
Do you
then
have any idea what the magnitude is?
Michael may have a little bit better, he can have a little quicker, better snapshot of that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. I can definitely answer that question. The May financials were final on Friday, so they will be distributed here shortly. Just broad overview, the revenue on the conference center compared to budget is down $239,000 in revenue, but we're actually up to budget $19,000 in profit. The loss is primarily a result of that large cancellation in December for the holiday party that I spoke to a couple months ago. And the reasoning for the gain to budget and profit is through expense cuts and unfortunately open positions. The net, my projection through, including May's final and June's projection, would have a net gain after reserve of a little over 62,000, and that's the county's portion. Again, that is with May's projection in June, or May's actual and June's projection, and June is looking to come in at the projection. So, does that answer the question?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean when you say after reserve. What is the reserve?
That we take away, take 5% a month, 5% of the revenue is set aside in the reserve for capital to make improvements to the building or emergency repairs. So technically, that is cash on hand.
So when you say after reserve, you mean you're including that reserve in the profits, right?
I am not.
You're not.
That is after the reserve is deducted. So that is the net profit for the convention center, the county's portion.
Because you are spending the reserve on repairs and expenses.
Over time,
yeah,
or throughout the year, we keep a balance in there for emergencies, but that reserve is intended for improvements to the building.
I don't know if this is a fair question, but how would you compare that to the industry standard for an annual year's profit? You know what I'm saying?
It's very difficult to compare that to industry standard because of the design of how this building operates with the convention center and the hotel and having 3 different ownership groups.
Mm-hmm.
Most situations that I've been in where it's one unit, you look at the big picture. In this case, it is unique. So I have nothing to compare that to.
And I just have one more question that's kind of bugging me. It's that cancellation. When they canceled over the holidays, they just walked? You didn't get to keep their money?
They did pay a heavy cancellation penalty.
Mm-hmm.
It was not quite, because of the timing on the contracts and There's a sliding scale for cancellation as you get closer to that date. The cancellation penalty that they paid, it was roughly, I think it was 70%. And that in itself has helped. When you have a loss of revenue of 239, but you're up in profit to your budget, that cancellation helped because that's more or less flows to the bottom line.
Money and you're not having to do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you for answering my questions.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Commissioner Danner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to kind of follow up. I had kind of a question about that loss too, but in relation to that loss, do you think your competition projecting out into the next year and the next 5 years is going to increase or decrease?
The competition?
Yeah.
The industry is projecting steady growth. And when I say the industry, from a hotel standpoint,
I mean, the
because
local Middle Tennessee area, is your competition going to increase? Do you see more hotels and hotel space coming
I'm sorry, I
in?
misunderstood the question. Yes, competition will increase. Currently, there are 3 hotels in construction right now in the Cool Springs area. And the benefit is that they're, with one exception, 2 of them are limited service hotels with minimal meeting space. And the one that will be across the street from us only will have 6,000 square feet, which is relatively small. It'll be a 250-room hotel.
All right, thank you.
Competition, growth in Nashville. I mean, the city's on fire in surrounding areas, so there are quite a few hotel rooms in Nashville and surrounding cities that are under construction.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any other questions you may have. I think you've got several other people to speak.
Any questions for the mayor? I see none. Thank you. Next, we have Director of Schools, Dr. Mike Looney.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good to see you this evening. I'll keep my report very brief. We're in the process of hiring, letting folks go, and constructing new facilities. If you'd like to answer any questions you have. We do have 5 resolutions before you tonight. I do appreciate your thoughtful consideration of each of those.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Good evening, Dr. Looney. I just have one quick question. How are we doing on getting the property secured for the sewer at that page? Has that been completed yet? Or?
Thursday evening, thank you for your question. Thursday evening, the school board will have its work session. On that agenda is the acquisition of property for sewer at the Middle Page High School complex. We have an oral agreement with the landowner, and expecting the board to approve that on Monday, with the first public discussion coming Thursday night.
Okay. Good job. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bethard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Looney, to keep the conversation around sewage, how are things going with the Henpeck Lane property in the city of Franklin, their cooperation with getting sewer out to that property so we might have yet another school?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. As you may very well know from the publication and the various media outlets, the mayor and I had several conversations which led to a BOMA action from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Franklin. They are willing to contribute 50% of the cost of sewer for a potential middle school site on the Henpeck property. Thursday evening, the board will discuss the merits of that proposed sewer. I suspect that they will look favorably upon it and approve it on Monday night. We will not need additional funding from the county commission for that. Our intention is to use resources that we already have available within our banks.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to follow up on that, if I may, Dr. Looney. What is the timeline that we're looking at then, if everything goes as anticipated with the the Board of Aldermen and the resources that you're talking about? What kind of a timeline are we looking at to get the sewage put in?
So the Board of Mayor and Aldermen have already taken action. They've authorized the city administration to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the school board. It's the school board's turn to do that. The planning and construction of the sewer is approximately a 36-month process. And so depending on this body, we expect to move forward with a middle school construction and the sewer development at the same time concurrently, and hopefully open a new middle school in the area in 36 to 48 months.
From now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Don't see any other questions.
Thank
you,
you.
Dr. Looney. Next, we have Don Webb with Williamson Medical Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier tonight, we placed on your desk a folder that looks like this. This is just some information that we thought might be helpful in your conversations later in the week. Williamson Medical Center has been a cornerstone of this community for nearly 60 years. We continue to stay focused on providing the highest quality medical care for our patients and our community. Conversations we are having tonight and into the future are disturbing to our employees, many of whom have worked with us for decades. Equally difficult for our medical staff and our strategic partner, as they do not understand some of the discussions that we are having. What they hear is that the hospital's future may be in some doubt. So I would ask on behalf of our employees and our medical staff that as you have these conversations tonight, again, and into the future, be mindful of the comments that are made as they relate to employees and members of the medical staff at the hospital. I would answer any question that anyone would have of me.
Any questions for Mr. Webb? I see none. Thank you. Oh. Who? Who? Oh, Mr. Milligan.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Inside the packet you gave us tonight, I'm looking at the 4 columns you presented.
Hey, Matt.
Speaking. All right.
Speaking to your microphone.
Inside the packet you gave us tonight, I'm looking at the 4 columns for net income. In 2015, the fiscal year for 2015, we had a significant jump in revenue. What was the basis of that? Because it seems to be twice as much revenue as coming in fiscal year 17.
So I would ask our CFO, Paul Boland, to assist me with answering this question, but that's actually the net income number for that fiscal year.
Right.
And there are multiple reasons for that to vary fairly significantly year over year. Paul will try and answer what those items were.
Sure. Thank you. There were actually several things that happened that year. One of the big ones was we achieved Meaningful Use, which is a government and Medicare program that if you establish an electronic health record, you can gain additional money. We did that, and that netted several additional dollars. Also, we had significant improvement in some revenue cycle functions, which actually got us paid better from insurance. And we had pretty high volumes that year. So there were 3 big things combined that all worked for the positive that year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Danner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When do you think you will have the equivalent amount of pediatric specialists at your children's hospital as there are in the downtown hospital with the same name?
I'm not sure that we would ever have the equivalent to the downtown hospital. That hospital is many times larger than Williamson Medical Center.
How are you coming on getting pediatric specialists to your children's hospital?
We're in conversations with some pediatric cardiologists right now, some pediatric orthopedic surgeons right now, so we are working towards that. As I've stated before to this group, difficulty in getting specialists to come to Williamson Medical Center on a full-time basis is they need the volume to support that for them. The difficulty on the other side is we need the specialist in order to get the volume that is necessary to support them. Somewhere there is a balance in the middle that would allow us to have more pediatric specialists out here. We haven't gotten there yet. I will tell you that the ER continues to grow in volume. We're seeing somewhere between 1,000 and 1,100 children in our ER every month. That's significantly higher than we anticipated 2 years ago when it opened.
Follow up? You through? All right. Thank you, Don. Are there any other county offices that would like to report at this time? I see none. Moving on to elections and appointments. Next, we have Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau Board of Directors, terms ending Jill Bergen, Steve Smith, and Paul Webb. Nominees Jill Bergen, Steve Smith, and Paul Webb. I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Osbrooks, Commissioner Landrum, the second. All in favor of those signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Next, we have Hospital Board of Trustees, 3-year terms expiring May of 2020. At large, Russell Little, term expiring. Districts 4 and 12, Cheryl Wilson. Districts 7 and 8, Bert Chalifant. Nominees, Russell Little at large, Dana Osbrooks, Districts 4 and 12, and Bert Chalifant, Districts 7 and 8. I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Hester, Commissioner Bether, the second. Yes.
Are these positions required to be filled by county commissioners?
They aren't required to be filled by county commissioners. There is a limit to the number of county commissioners you can have on the board. I believe that's capped at 4.
I think we have 5. I think we have the mayor plus 5, if I remember correctly.
The mayor is not a county
I
commissioner.
understand that, but then plus 5. I would move that we defer the appointment of Commissioner Osbrooks to give us some time to investigate as to whether there might be some more highly qualified candidates that could be offered up. She is the new person who's not currently on the hospital board. We have a plethora of retired senior corporate hospital system executives in Williamson County, and I think that having that level of expertise and perceptiveness on the board might be a real advantage.
The board makes the nominations, so that's, you can make a nomination
We can defer our approval.
You can defer the approval. The sitting board member would continue to serve until the successor is elected.
I understand. I'd make that motion, that we defer the new appointee.
Motion.
To be clear, that's as to the one position?
As to the one position, yes. The other 2 parties are already on the board. So that's a motion. I would need a second, I assume.
Do you have a motion to defer Dana Osbrooks?
Is that up for discussion, or we got to vote on that?
You have to vote,
Okay.
but it is for discussion.
Proper motion and second. Let's see, Kate. Commissioner Little?
I'd like to ask legal for an opinion on the conflict of interest that was brought up earlier. Under law, do we as commissioners who have relatives or are on the board, is there a conflict for us voting on these?
At a maximum, it's an indirect conflict under the state statute, and as such, can be removed by a statement that you're voting your conscience and acknowledging the indirect. There is no direct conflict of interest for a commissioner sitting on the board. They are unpaid board members. They do not receive any compensation for it. So, and in fact, the private act makes it clear they are not to receive compensation. So there's no direct financial interest in it as is contemplated by the state statute.
All right, discussion on the deferral. Commissioner Chalifant?
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Osbrooks was nominated because we were wanting to add an additional commissioner to the board. You're just taking her off. You want the representation from the county commission, but you're taking her off.
No, I want representation from experienced healthcare corporate executives, sir. That's what I'm looking for.
Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question in regards to the deferral. Is this being deferred to our July meeting, or is there a date that needs to be set to that?
Commissioner Kestner?
I would think we could investigate and potentially propose a new nominee by July, but if the nominations have to come from the Board of Trustees, then maybe it takes till August. I don't know. You tell me how.
Their nomination would stand. Their nomination is what
Okay,
it
so we
is.
would
It
just,
will not
we would
change.
put up a different person. So
If you were to
in-
put up a different person as the commission, that person would require 2/3 vote to receive election to the Board of Trustees. The nominee from the board only requires a majority,
Mhm.
and that's set by the private act as well.
I sense a losing proposition. I still think it's the right thing to do here.
So point of order, Mr. Chairman, if I may. So if we defer this to, if I'm understanding council's advice, or council, is we're looking at the September meeting, then that we're looking at, because I'm misunderstanding, because we don't meet in August.
Well, we could,
It could be in
it
July.
could be in July.
We could do it in July.
In July, we could have a nominee, or we could defer it again until September. You know, healthcare law has become an amazingly specialized practice of law, and I worry that people think they're getting something they're not getting here. If you go down to Bassbury and Sims, or Wallow Lanston, or Alston and Byrd, you know, there are a plethora of full-time healthcare legal specialists. It's very complex. That's the concern here.
So in regards to the nomination, if we ultimately were to reject the nomination of Commissioner Osbrooks, then if I'm understanding, the hospital would then put up yet another nominee?
You've got two separate questions going on here. The
Well, help me understand then.
Yeah, the hospital board, under the private act, nominates the members to the county commission.
Correct.
You can approve that nomination.
And if we reject it,
At the time of that election, there is an opportunity for the commission to add a nominee. It happens contemporaneously. There is not before and after. If for some reason the nominee of the commission does not receive 2/3 and the nominee from the board does not receive a majority, you would continue voting until one of those two things occurred.
so it'd just be, keep going back and forth between the two boards.
In what sequence do you have those votes? Is there a particular sequence? Do you vote on one and then the other?
No,
Who gets
they
to
are
go
voted
first?
by roll call vote.
Okay,
With
got
the
it.
two nominees at the same time.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Williams?
It's just a statement. You know, something to consider is that we maintain some representation on the Board of Trustees because the county has an interest in the hospital. And as such, we want county commissioners on there so we can maintain and watch the business of the hospital and make sure it's in our best interest and to either maintain ownership of it or possibly pursue something else down the road. So I think that was mentioned earlier, the board is comprised of several members from the community. And as such, when those nominees come up for nomination, it might be more appropriate to possibly replace one of them with a different member from the community that brings a different expertise to the board, opposed to some seats that have kind of been reserved for the county commission. That's all.
All right, thank you. Kate, have you got the deferral loaded on the board?
Milligan.
All right, Commissioner Milliken?
Thank you. I've seen the way we investigate other potential nominees in the past with other appointments or nominees, and they're all over the board. For me to have any inkling to vote in favor of this motion, I would like to know exactly how we'll be investigating potential nominees. Because if there is a plethora of executives out there, I'm wondering why no one has come forward with a name so far.
Would you like me to respond to that? I've not yet asked anybody, and I don't think they knew.
We need I just think we need to flesh out what the process is going to be.
Well, I think we did.
The process is what the commission decides it is. The private act sets forth the nomination process, and that is the board makes a nomination, the county commission can nominate another member. But they are not required to, and in many cases they do not. There is no process in your rules or in the private act as to the hospital board that contemplates an investigation of potential nominees. If the county commission wishes to set a process, that's certainly within your prerogative, subject to the Open Meetings Acts and the other things that constrain you. But there is no process that's set legislatively.
If the press coverage works this evening, there may be some public awareness, and in fact, you may have some people come forward.
That some people may come forward, that's fine. I just want us and everyone else to know, because we've had trouble in the past here, what that process is going to be. If we want to discuss that, that's fine. If we want to let it be people coming forward, that's fine. I think the community who will be watching this would like to know how this body is going to look at potential nominees.
Commissioner Ford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been an advocate of having more commissioners rather than less commissioners on the hospital board. And I'm an advocate for that because I believe the commissioners who are on the board should be representing the interest of Williamson County and the interest of the citizens of Williamson County on the board, not representing the interest of the hospital to the commission. And I don't believe that's always been the case with commissioners. So that's the reason that I support that. In my history on here, I have seen commissioners who have been advocates for the hospital to the commission, and that to me is flipped of why I believe that was put into the private act to begin with. Thank you.
Commissioner Danner? No, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Mr. Sturgeon,
That's fine.
got ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask, is it the situation that any commissioner could nominate a potential person for this position in next month? Is that a possibility?
Sure.
So it's up to the commissioners to make nominations alternative to the board?
Correct.
Okay, so anybody in the public who's interested could approach any one of us, and any one of us could take the initiative to search for who we thought would fill the position well.
For this actual position, they would have to reside in District 4 or District 12.
Thank you. That's important. Thank you.
Now, Commissioner Danner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Milliken brings up a good point on the process for how we might vet a non-commissioner, but to Commissioner Ford's point, I'm curious as to what the process is that the Board of Trustees for the hospital uses to choose a commissioner. Greg and I are eligible. Why wouldn't the Board of Trustees pick one of us to be to represent? I mean, why not get a commissioner that could bring some fair and balance to it? A commissioner that may have voted to look into studying the sale of the hospital. Why not have some true oversight instead of just picking commissioners who only have the best interest of the hospital?
Commissioner Williams? Let's see. Yeah.
Just one more statement. If we are going to nominate somebody, it's a healthcare executive. Realize that the hospital is a business entity, that we do have competition out there, that not every healthcare executive would be a good choice for the board because of connections to other competitors out there.
All right. Do what? Oh, okay. All right, it's loaded. If you're in favor of deferral, let's see, yeah, push your yes button. And all right, we're ready. If you're in favor of deferral, push your yes button and confirm. If you're not, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
7 yes, 16 no.
Failed. Deferral fails. So we're back to the Russell Little, Dana Alsbrooks, and Bert Chalafant.
Should we take these individually?
Sure, if you want to. You want to do a roll call vote?
You have to ask if there are any other nominees. I think what they're asking is.
Are there any other nominees?
I don't have one at this moment.
All right. Yeah, Jeff, if you'll roll call, the first one on the ballot is Russell Little.
Commissioner Alsbrooks is Commissioner Bethard, Commissioner Chalfant, Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Danner, Commissioner Ford, Commissioner Green, Commissioner Hester, Commissioner Hullett, Commissioner Dwight Jones, Commissioner Ricky Jones, Commissioner Kestner, Commissioner Landrum, Commissioner Lawrence, Commissioner Little, Commissioner Milligan, Commissioner Pear, Commissioner Ryan, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Sturgeon, Commissioner Walton,
Yes.
Commissioner Webb, Commissioner Williams. Okay. 21 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstain.
So Russell
For
Little is
Commissioner-
confirmed.
for
Next-
Russell Little, yes.
Next, we have Dana Alsbrooks.
Commissioner Alsbrooks. Commissioner Bethard. Commissioner Chalfant. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Danner. Commissioner Ford. Commissioner Green. Commissioner Hester. Commissioner Hullett. Commissioner Dwight Jones. Commissioner Ricky Jones. Commissioner Kestner. Commissioner Landrum. Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Little. Commissioner Milligan. Commissioner Pear. Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Sturgeon. Commissioner Walton.
Yes.
Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Williams. All right, so that's 20 yes and 3 no.
Okay, Commissioner Alsbrooks is confirmed. Next, we have Commissioner Chalafant.
Okay, Commissioner Alsbrooks. Commissioner Bethard. Commissioner Chalfant. Okay. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Danner. Commissioner Ford. Commissioner Green. Commissioner Hester. Commissioner Hullett. Commissioner Dwight Jones. Commissioner Ricky Jones. Commissioner Kestner. Commissioner Landrum. Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Little. Commissioner Milligan. Commissioner Pear. Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Sturgeon. Commissioner Walton.
Yes.
Commissioner Webb? Yes. Commissioner Williams? Yes. Okay, that's 22 yes and 1 abstain.
All right. Commissioner Chalfant's confirmed. Moving on, Independent Audit Committee, 3-year term expiring June of 2020. Term expiring Paul Boland, nominee Paul Boland. I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Chalfant, the second. All in favor of Paul Boland, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we have Library Board of Trustees, 3-year term expiring June of 2020. Term expiring Doris McMillan. Nominee Marilyn Hoff. I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Green, Commissioner Webb, second. All in favor of Marilyn Hoff signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Next, we have Veteran Service Officer, 2-year term expiring June of 2019. Janine Hinkle, term expiring, nominee Janine Hinkle. Commissioner Hester, Commissioner Clark, the second. All in favor of Ms. Hinkle signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, moving on. Next, we have the consent agenda, which includes the notaries and Resolution 62726 and 61727. I'm sorry, I read that one wrong. I thought. All right. Commissioner Little, Commissioner Jones, the second. It's on the machine. If you're in favor, consent agenda, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Consent agenda passes. Next, we've moved Resolution 61733 forward. Resolution to establish a task force for the purpose of studying the possible need for requesting the General Assembly to amend the Public Benefit Hospital Sales and Conveyance Act of 2006 concerning use of proceeds received from selling a county-owned hospital and to evaluate the valuation of Williamson County Hospital District, DBA, Williamson Medical Center. Commissioner Lawrence?
Are you going to ask for the?
Well, move for approval.
Oh, okay. Move for approval.
All right, is there a second? Commissioner Ryan, the second. Property Committee?
2 in favor, 4 against, as amended.
All right. Public Health Committee?
1 in favor, 4 against. I might add that 1 also coincides with 1 of the 2. The Property Committee, same person.
Okay. Budget Committee? All right. Explanation, Commissioner Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, it's not exactly a fun resolution to bring, and I know it is an emotional issue for reasons that we've heard tonight for many people in the community, even many people on this board. But I did bring this tonight because we've had a lot of discussions over the last several months and around the budget and about the budget and meetings with parents, quite a few meetings in Brentwood and some here at this building, where the question of the hospital has come up. And the parents are asking the question about what are the possibilities of what Williamson County might be able to do with the hospital. And I found some of the answers that they were given somewhat incomplete, so I tried to dig in and try to find out what the law says about this issue with the help of counsel, and I wouldn't say I'm an expert on this. I'm still learning exactly all the legal issues surrounding this subject, but here's what seems clear to me right now. The first thing is we don't really know under the current law what we can or cannot do with any proceeds from a hospital sale. If the law means or says that we have to use the money for health care in the event of a hospital sale, what does that actually mean? Because we spend a lot of money on healthcare in the county. We spend a lot of money on therapists. We hire nurses in the schools. We spend a lot of money on special ed. We spend almost $50 million a year on healthcare for the employees here. So could we use it for those things? If the law said, hey, you got to use it for healthcare, well, that's healthcare. We're spending a lot of money on that. Could we use that money and use it for that purpose? So I put that to council. Council can't say definitively yes or no on that issue. So if council doesn't know, none of us know. If council doesn't know if we can or can't use the money for those purposes, none of us in the room know. So that's the first thing. And secondly, now the law was changed in 2012, and it appears that we could not use the money for general purposes because the money can't come back to any county organization. However, I do know that in 2010, Sumner Regional Medical Center was sold, and they've been able to use the money from their hospital sale for any purpose they wanted to. There was no restriction on health care or indigent care, any of those things. They did not have any restrictions on that money. So it appears to me that if the law was to be able to be rolled back to whatever the 2006 language says, that presumably any other county that sold a hospital would be able to do the same thing and be able to use the money for whatever they wanted, whatever purposes they wanted to. So what we, as part of this law, or part of this resolution would need to do would simply be to ask our representatives in Nashville, to all of who are here tonight, to run a bill and see if we can get the law changed. And I have got confirmation from Glenn Cassida in the House and Jack Johnson in the Senate that both of them would sponsor the bill if we sent it up there. And there's a lot of speculation about what the state legislation would or would not do if we did that, and whether it's going to be hard or easy to get the law changed. The answer to those questions is I don't think anybody knows, but I know one thing for sure. There's one way we can definitely know is to ask them to run a bill and get them to run the bill, and once the bill is voted on, then we know. We know exactly what the outcome is going to be. So that would be the second part of this bill, of this resolution. And the third thing is it time for us to have an honest discussion with the people of Williamson County about the future of the hospital industry, and particularly in how it might relate to Williamson Medical Center. I have an article here that appeared in the May 7th Tennessean. I want to read just a couple of things in here. There's a quote in here from Craig Becker, who's the president of the Tennessee Hospital Association, who says, hospital administrators face daunting challenges. The article goes on to say that there is no relief on the horizon. The financial landscape will get rockier in the coming years as the industry and those who contract with it try to find ways to stem rising healthcare costs. At the same time, patients want pricey tech-enabled care, and more people with concurrent chronic diseases are aging into Medicare. These factors and others, including medical advancements, have made a hospital stay less desirable to the public, and that hospital stay is less desirable to the people who pay for it, that is, the insurers and the employers. That puts hospitals as a function in a difficult spot. I don't really see anything good coming down the pike. That's a quote from Emily Evans, Managing Director of Health Policy at Hedgeye. So those are some of the challenges facing Williamson Medical Center and every hospital in America. It's not every hospital, I think we have to agree, is under pressure right now in today's healthcare environment. So the question is, what does that mean? What does that mean for the future of Williamson Medical Center? And is it time we had a discussion with the people of Williamson County about that? You know, if you ask the question, is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? Is Medicare going to raise reimbursements, or is the commercial payers, are they going to raise reimbursements? All of this is coming about because of pressure put on hospitals because of payers reducing their fee schedules from primarily Medicare, because everything is a function of Medicare. Medicare sets the fee schedules, and then the commercial payers use that as a function of what they pay. So if the answer to that question is no, then right now may be as good as it's going to get. Where we're at today may be as good as we are going to get, and from here on out, it's going to be worse than it is today. So if that's the case, isn't it time that we had a conversation about that with the people of Williamson County and let them decide? Now, this is one of the things that I learned in this process, is that you could actually put a hospital referendum on a public ballot to be voted on by the public. And I think this is one of those issues that we need to do that on. I would not presume to know what the heart of Williamson County residents is on this subject, but if we put it to a public referendum and allow the people to weigh in, then we know. So if we pass this resolution tonight and we ask our representatives at the state level to change the law, and we can get the law changed, then we put this matter to the people and allow the people to vote on it. And then we will have, now that's a non-binding vote. It doesn't bind the commission to anything if they do vote on it. But at least we'll know what the heart of Williamson County is on this issue, and then we can act accordingly. So that's why I think we should do the study at this time. There was a meeting several years ago when we were campaigning at the Franklin Municipal Complex, and I don't remember who all was in that room that night. Several of us were in that room, and we were all being interviewed for our campaigns, and the moderator asked each one of us individually, do you support a study for the hospital and Williamson Medical Center and what possibilities we may have with it? And as I recall, almost every one of us in that room that night, and again, I don't remember exactly who all was in there, but every one of us said we would support that, and we've never done it. And I think it's time to do it, and that's why I bring this resolution tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Danner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This issue is never going away. It's not ever going away for at least two reasons. Ones that Commissioner Lawrence already mentioned. One is we have to understand if this hospital is in jeopardy of becoming a liability. There are a lot of new outside circumstances putting pressure on this hospital that weren't there the last time we voted on this, and we've got to understand what those risks are. The other reason it's never going away, it won't go away as long as we have unanswered questions on what we can and cannot do with the net proceeds under the current law. There's just a lot of mixed opinions out there. We need definitive answers. Even if this resolution fails tonight, there will be others this year. I'll be bringing a resolution regarding adding this issue to the ballot as an advisory referendum by private act. Then there could be a resolution asking our state reps to reverse the amended law of 2012 so that local governments have local control over the net proceeds of the sale of their hospital. Imagine that, local control over local assets. Our state reps agreed, as Greg said, in 2013 to do this, and again, I guess recently, if a majority of commissioners ask them to do so. Then there might be a resolution later this year asking the hospital to donate the $1 million in property tax that they don't currently contribute, that full $1 million. Even that would be helpful. This issue will keep coming up several times this year and into the election, and most likely after the election and in front of the next Board of Commissioners. It will keep coming up because the idea that the county could increase property taxes year over year or even every other year without taking steps to sell assets that compete with the private sector first is just unacceptable. I talked to some folks today, and I have heard an argument that's got some validity to it, and that is that this would be a Band-Aid, that this would be temporary, and that's true. But if managed well, it could last 10 years. 10 years is a heck of a Band-Aid. It's just like your personal budget, your home budget. You don't run out to put hundreds of thousands of dollars on your credit card until you assess what you can sell, until you assess all of your priorities, your current assets and liabilities. We have a duty to look into this before we just run to a property tax increase. This resolution should pass because we owe it to our constituents to give them accurate answers. When this law changed in 2012, it was said to me by a current state representative that the net proceeds from the trust could be spent on the health and welfare of the citizens, which at that time he said it could include Parks and Rec. And I remember that conversation because I remember saying that's a terrible idea. We don't want to spend $200,000 to $300,000 on Parks and Rec. But now, if that is true, then that could free up $12 million a year that we could spend on schools and public safety. What if we could spend the proceeds on the health care costs of the county citizens? That would free up $60 million a year. Our own council, as Commissioner Lawrence pointed out, just doesn't know definitively what we can and cannot do. There are too many unanswered questions. Voting yes on this tonight indicates that you are willing to at least seek accurate information on behalf of your 15,000 constituents. Voting no on this tonight sends the message to a growing, awakened audience that you know all the answers, including what the AG opinion might be or not be, and that you are fine with owning a $500 million asset that can only be given away without being able to use a dime for county citizen needs, and that you are fine with it possibly becoming a growing liability. You have heard the stories of the Williamson County Vanderbilt Monroe Carroll Children's Hospital turning away some children in emergency situations. I heard another one today, as a matter of fact, because they simply do not have the pediatric specialists. I'm not okay with that. To me, that's a red flag that something is wrong. In addition, if you vote no, you leave your constituents without answers and you increase the volume of citizens starting to ask why. Why do some commissioners keep obstructing the effort to get this information? I hope you see that it is time. It's just time to open this up and get answers to how we can or can't use the money and to how big or small the liability may be. This issue is never going away. I intend to support Commissioner Lawrence's resolution.
Commissioner Kestner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I really think what we need to do is have an adult conversation based on facts, and that's something we've never done in this body. We don't know anything about these restrictions. All the things I've heard about the restrictions are just things people repeat that they've heard other people say at some point in time. One thing I am sure about is I am sure that the instability in the acute care industry affects both the not-for-profit and the for-profit sectors, which is completely contrary to what one of our commissioners writes about in social media and emails. One point of frustration that I have is that historically Williamson Medical Center has been anti-competitive, anti-growth, and anti-tax revenue. What do I mean by that? We're pretty schizophrenic here. We give tax abatements to Schneider Electric, a 60 billion euro French company. We give them $2 million to relocate here, and yet we're okay with Williamson Medical stopping the development of an acute care hospital in Spring Hill. Williamson Medical strives to stop healthcare development in Brentwood. Those are good jobs. It's a good tax base. Spring Hill needed a hospital. Spring Hill still needs a hospital. We need the $3 million in property tax that we would be getting paid right now if Williamson Medical hadn't stopped that. $3 million. That pays the operating cost for over 500 students. 500. We only got 38,000. That's a pretty significant thing. So when you look at the hospital, it's not some little self-contained thing that never affects anything else. On the contrary, it's hit us for $3 million a year. Let me give you some examples. We need to maximize the value for our taxpayers in all things. The hospital should have a first-rate board of trustees with subject matter experts as members. The more the board appears to be weak, the more it looks like local government cronyism, which nobody likes. Nobody. Let me give you some examples of what we don't know. 20 years ago, I structured the acquisition of a community in Virginia where we paid the owner all of the value of the business, and we got the full benefit of the business, yet it's not a sale for real estate law or tax law. It was a sale for GAAP accounting. So I think about that, and I wonder, well, how would Tennessee law treat that if we did some structure, an OPCO-PROPCO structure with the hospital? Guess what? We don't know. So the schools, if you look at 2016 expenses, there's $47 million of expenses in 2016 that in my mind are health care. There's $8 million of direct health care professionals that are on salary. I'm not even including the benefits, just the direct salary. $8 million for nurses, for speech pathologists, for psychologists, for drug educators, for all those sorts of things, which we ought to do. It's great, we do it. Plus, there's $39 million of special ed. Special ed is I think that's health care, don't you? That's $47 million. That's 1/8 of the entire school budget. So if some of these anecdotal hearsay, secondhand, third-hand comments about, well, you could only use the money for health care, well, could I fund 1/8 of the school budget with it every year? I don't know. We don't know. You don't know. A few years ago, one commissioner stated when we had this resolution a few years ago, 2014, that if we went through the due diligence process, it would cost the county this is a quote, $600,000 to $700,000 in due diligence cost to vet the contracts that the hospital has to share them with third-party potential buyers. Well, I'm up to $8 billion, that's with a B, $8 billion worth of M&A transactions as of 2 months ago, and I will tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. That particular speaker knows nothing about the normal M&A processes, nor the sequence of events during the natural evolution of a transaction, nor which party accepts the risk of suffering the costs of a deal that fails to close. That's what earnest money is for. So, you know, unfortunately, I was not able to rebut that comment when this was voted on, and that just laid out there. I'll tell you that I really don't know whether the hospital ought to be sold or not. Anybody that tells you Kestner wants to sell the hospital, they don't know because I don't know. Because I don't know the facts, because we've never had a conversation. We don't have conversations. These are little sequential soliloquies that everybody makes, and we never really have a conversation, unlike what happens in corporate management, where people actually talk and give and take. I agree with Kathy. I strongly feel that this topic is going to be with us forever. And we have an obligation to the taxpayers to determine what the facts really are that would impinge upon a potential sale. Most of all, I think the hospital deserves a first-class board of trustees with appropriate experts. We have a fiduciary duty to our taxpayers to understand the facts. We have it. It's our oath. We have a fiduciary duty to understand the facts. We don't know them. You don't know them. I don't know them. I've done a heck of a lot of M&A. I still don't know it until we do some research and figure out what those facts are. And I think it's pretty amazing if, in fact, people in this room don't want to have an adult conversation and understand the context, no matter what we do. How do you make a good decision unless you understand the facts? You don't. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that I'm supporting the resolution because, principally speaking, facts need to be known rather than speculated. And whenever conversations begun about this particular topic, only sound bites have been delivered. Like we don't need a study because we already know what's going to happen. We simply don't know because we have no objective opinion from the industry who can advise us in our particular climate. We don't really know how the law is going to treat the sale and its proceeds because none of us are attorneys who specialized in managed care mergers and acquisitions. What we should know is that we have options. Undoubtedly, the hospital is worth a lot. It's worth a lot to us, but it's also worth a lot to managed care networks. The options would surely range from selling the real estate while keeping operations, or might be advised to go the other way around. Selling operations but keeping the real estate. What would property taxes look like then? What would it look like to bring investors into particular features of a partnership? We don't know, but we need to know. An incredible forecast has been laid out for us by the tax study the mayor organized for us. Our planning department has made it crystal clear what growth in the next 2 decades looks like. And our superintendent of schools has given us an even more daunting vision of what our kids need for education. We desperately need to resist the reactionary notion to simply raise taxes because the need is so great and our county is so wealthy. We still have plenty of landed families in this county that aren't particularly cash rich. So I support any reasonable, creative process that works to the increased revenue, decreased liability, without taxing our citizens after the 15% plus increase they've just been hit with. And I guess all I want to end with is that it would be legal plunder to simply receive the reports we've been receiving and declare we have no choice. We have to raise taxes.
Commissioner Bethard.
Well, somebody's got to give another side to this, I believe. Where to begin? As many of you know, I supported this task force wholeheartedly 5 years ago, and today I don't. I didn't necessarily change my mind. The facts have changed in that time. When I looked into this 5 years ago, and again, wholeheartedly supported it, I reached out to attorneys to get opinions. The law wasn't all that vague then. I could find maybe 2 out of 10 attorneys who would tell me that there was a chance we could do something with the proceeds if we sold the hospital. Since the law has been made tighter, I personally have not been able to find an attorney that has that opinion. Commissioner Lawrence, you said that it's still vague. Commissioner Danner, you agreed. I guess my question is, what attorneys, and you don't have to name them by name, but give me a count of what attorneys have told you they still believe that the law, made tighter some 3 years ago, is still vague on this subject. And then I have some other questions.
Well, let's don't get in a conversation.
Then if you can write some of these questions down. When I was interested in this before, I found one hospital interested in purchasing us. That hospital has since, to me, removed their interest following the partnership with Vanderbilt. And I'm curious how many hospitals have told you that they would be interested. And then I reached out to our state reps. They were the ones, after all, that tightened this law. And I'm wondering how many of those state reps you have here today. Not to say the proverbial statement that we all get from time to time, that they'll change the name of Williamson County if we give them 2/3 of a vote to do so, but to actually earnestly support this endeavor of creating a task force. And then lastly, I'd ask you how many counties you've contacted that have tried this before. I contacted 4 of them. One is very heartbroken over the fact that they now don't have a hospital and they don't have money. I'm wondering how many you reached out to. At some point, and for those in the audience, I'm usually the guy who supports all task force. Every commissioner up here is known for something. That's a lot of times I'll be the lone yes vote, saying, yeah, what's wrong with the task force? And of all the questions we heard at the beginning, that to me is the one that peels back all the layers of the onion. Gets to the center and the heart of, why not a task force? Why not get that information? And indeed, I usually vote in that manner. But I don't believe in absolutes, and I don't believe that a task force comes without a cost. And with that, it pains me that I hear Commissioner Danner say that this is going to come back again and again and again, because we wouldn't do that to any other entity in this county. It's almost cruel that we subject the hospital and its staff and its surgeons. We wouldn't do this to Nissan. We wouldn't do this to Mars Pet Care. We would never try to use eminent domain to procure a private school for the benefit of our schools. And those out there who don't know me, I wear that shirt and those letters, and Dr. Looney can tell you, I'm a huge proponent of our schools. One of the largest. But as a fiscal conservative, this seems to me like we're kicking the can down the road and we're choosing one asset and almost picking on it when there's so many other assets that we're legally able to sell that would be not come with these hurdles. And this one we have researched to death. Again, I know there are those who are going to support this resolution no matter what I say, and there's those who are going to always be against it. I think I'm the only commissioner who always supports task force who doesn't support this one, and I think I'm the only commissioner who supported this task force wholeheartedly and now does not. I did it by doing my own research, my own homework, meeting with people from both sides. I don't know, the other question I would have for you is how many of the hospital board meetings have you attended? They're all open to the public. I collected all that information without creating a task force. I did it because I thought it was my fiduciary responsibility as an elected official. I thought that's what I was elected to do. And I came to my conclusion, which is one of 24, and it's worth that much or less. But I got it from doing research, not from saying, oh, I've heard that they can't do it, or I've heard this. I talked to counties who have done it and regret it. I talked to hospitals that wanted to buy us and now don't. I talked to our hospital staff, our administration, our CFO, our CEO, and I talked to our state representatives. This is a state issue. You can start your own task force. You can go to the state and tell them to change the law. But you're asking us to put the cart before the horse and do so in a manner in which it, again, I keep coming back to this, it's almost cruel. Our hospital has a harder time getting those pediatric doctors when the ones who might want to come here and work for a county-owned hospital that also happens to be state-of-the-art might have some reservations during this period of time in which we're in flux. I don't mind sending somebody on a fool's errand, but I won't do it if it does harm to our second largest employer in this county. And so I'm a no vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've actually just got a couple of questions about the resolution, if I might. I'd like to ask through the chair to the maker of the resolution, if I might. What is this task force actually tasked with doing? Because I hear a lot of things about, this is not a resolution to sell the hospital. I want to understand, first of all, before I vote yes or no on this, what is the limits to what this task force is intended to do? I see in here it says that we are studying the possible need of amending a act of the state as it relates to use of the proceeds from sale or public benefit of the hospital. So that's one thing that this is intended to do, is say, how would we have to amend state law to be able to if we intended down the road to sell the hospital? Is that one of the, yeah, is there any, and then I see, and possible valuation. Is this task force intended to value the hospital, or is it intended to see if there are any restrictions on us getting a valuation of the hospital?
To see if there's any restrictions on it.
To see, so this is not even to go out and value, to say how much is a hospital worth. This is not intended at all to be able to go out and solicit buyers. This is not intended for any of that. This is just to lay out what could potentially be a path. Is that,
right?
Through the chair, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand what we're voting on here. We're not voting to sell the hospital. We are not demeaning any hospital employees. I have the utmost respect for the hospital and the work they do in this community. I also have the utmost respect for all of the hospital companies that are in Middle Tennessee. As a matter of fact, while Commissioner Kessner mentioned that we gave a tax abatement to Schneider Electric, this commission also gave a tax abatement to CHS to locate and keep their for-profit hospital company in this state. In this county, we are giving tax relief to a for-profit hospital, and then we're going to turn around and demean that same industry. That makes no sense to me. I've got a quick question also, Mr. Chair, to legal counsel, if I might. Mr. Mosley, I've heard that any proceeds, I've heard as a fact that any proceeds would have to go to indigent care. Is that correct?
No, that's not true.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to make sure that we understand.
It's a possible use of the funds, but it is not the only required use.
Yeah, and when we're structuring a contract with an entity to potentially purchase a hospital, could we make them making donations into indigent care a potential clause in that contract? Is that potential?
I would think that's a possible.
Thank you very much. This is nothing more than studying the path to that. Like we said, we've heard lots of things that are put out there as fact that are not fact. The fact is, we don't know the facts, and that's why I'll support this resolution. Thank you.
Mr. Sturgeon.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll probably echo a lot of what's already been said, but I want my constituents to know how I feel about this issue. You know, we study everything. We study the impact fee. We do traffic studies. I don't understand why we wouldn't want to study our assets to make sure we're doing the right thing. I feel responsible as a commissioner to protect the assets that taxpayers own, and I don't know how I can possibly do that when there's so much unknown. I don't feel comfortable being a task force of one when we have all these resources in the county. This is way too important for me to do my own research on and expect to come up with the right answers. I actually feel rather starved for information right now. I hear that, you know, we have a dynamic healthcare field that's changing constantly with Obamacare and changes in Medicare, and I haven't once heard how we are mitigating those threats to protect the county assets. I'm not saying we're not doing it, but I'm not being told what that is. So I heard Commissioner Williams concern about putting somebody on our hospital board that could come from a competitor. And as soon as I heard that, I just kind of took a short breath, because I don't believe that government entities should be competing with private industry, because government entities have an advantage over private competitors. We have the taxpayer funding us, and we also have the ability to affect laws that can favor government-held properties over others. And I would like to see some tax coming in from the Williamson County Medical Center. We could use that money. I've also heard that we need to be sensitive to the employees, and of course that's true. But a lot of my constituents and my own family, we've never been guaranteed a job. My husband's and my jobs have always been in flux. I was never guaranteed a position. And I think we should, if we can't be flexible and if we can't move with the economy, we won't survive. At least private industries won't survive, because they have to compete. So I like Williamson County Medical Center. I think they do a wonderful job. They just do. But so does Vanderbilt, so does St. Thomas. And I just don't believe that we should be giving one entity an advantage over the others. So we just can't ignore the changing face of healthcare and stick our heads in the sand and say, I hope it's going to be okay. I personally am disturbed that if what is true, if we study it, I'll know it's true, that our income has gone down over 50% in the last 2 years from the hospital, even though revenues are up. That's been repeated. I think it's true. But if we had a study, I would know for sure. So I can't hear something like that and feel like I'm doing my job if we don't study it, or if somebody can't come to me with the facts and tell me what's going on. So I will support this resolution.
Commissioner Kestner, you've already spoken to it, so Commissioner Milliken has not, so I'll be back to you. Commissioner Milliken?
I have some things I want to say, but before I do...
Turn your mic on, Matt.
Oh, here we go. Sorry.
It's on.
You're on. It's on.
Now, there we go. I have several things, comments I want to make. What I would like to do before I do that is to allow legal counsel to give a more thoughtful response as to the idea of selling the hospital, what his current understanding of the law actually is, because we've been told what it is, but I'd like to hear it from him, and then I'll make comments after that, please.
The process for sale of the hospital, first of all, the hospital property is owned by the county. The operations of the hospital have been delegated to the hospital board by private act. So the purpose of the private act was established in 1957. The Attorney General has opined in the past that any proceeds other than those that would give the municipality or county back monies actually expended on behalf of the hospital would have to be held in trust for the primary purpose as established at the time the hospital was established. That's the general rule under which the Attorney General has first opined.
Can I ask a question as you do that? Because it'll be, what was the primary purpose of the hospital?
Public health for Williamson County.
Okay, please go ahead.
The subsequent to that, the Public Benefit Hospital Conveyance Act of 2006 first laid out the criteria that the Attorney General would use in reviewing any proposed sale of a public benefit hospital in the state of Tennessee. And that is where some of the confusion first started as to whether or not the county could use proceeds for something other than a healthcare purpose. And there is nothing in the law that says it has to be used for a healthcare purpose. It says it has to be used for the purpose that the hospital was created. If the hospital was created for a separate purpose in another municipality, the Attorney General's opinion could change based on those facts and circumstances. But in this case, the Act says that these are things that to be considered. The Attorney General, if it believes that those factors are not met, could object to the sale and could disallow the sale if you would. In 2014, that Act was amended to clarify a couple of things. One was that no monies from the proceeds other than those that the county, in this case, had expended for the hospital could go back to the county. It cannot go back into your general fund. That's the first thing that is clear from the statute. There's no debate about that. The second question is to what degree you could control those funds. The trust that would be established and a foundation is contemplated by the statute would be done independent of the county and could not be controlled by the municipality or the county insofar as it would be an effective receipt of those funds if you could continue to budget based on that independent of that foundation. Now, that's my opinion. That is not an opinion that has been granted by the Attorney General or anyone else at this point. So that's my opinion looking at the history of that.
I read it the same way. Can I dial in on something you said at the end? When this went into a trust independent of the county, who would then be in control of those funds?
The trustees that would be appointed pursuant to that trust.
Okay.
And that trust could be a self-perpetuating trust, and in many transactions that go from county facilities to for-profit entities, that trust is a self-perpetuating trust that is not even an appointment power by the government entity because of the control factor that would come into play. That's not just in Tennessee. You see that across the nation. So I'm not saying that's required specifically, but that is not something that would be surprising if it were required by the Attorney General in passing on a transaction.
Are there any cases on point in Tennessee which have interpreted the statute and ruled upon as authority?
The LaFollette case said that the proceeds from the sale had to be used for the purpose that the hospital was established for. That's the only court case that I'm aware of right now. Now, I would say that the Sumner County case, which was mentioned, is not actually a state law case. It's a bankruptcy case, and that's a completely different set of circumstances, as Sumner County at the time actually was no longer a governmental entity. It had already been conveyed to a 501c3 corporation. That 501c3 corporation went to bankruptcy. The Public Benefit Hospital Conveyance Act was not applicable at that point because it was under the bankruptcy laws, and the court found specifically that the conveying deeds, et cetera, allowed the county to receive proceeds from the bankruptcy sale at that point. Completely different set of circumstances than we have in front of us here.
And would you agree with me? I'm going to ask you several questions like this. Would you agree with me that basic legal precedent would be that the Tennessee state case is authority, whereas the Sumner County decision, which is a bankruptcy case, is not binding upon Tennessee courts whatsoever?
I would agree with that.
Would you agree with me further that there's really no way to know how we can use these funds until an appeals court tells us how we can do it after all the legal challenges are over?
I would agree that you do not know the scope that you can use, but you probably know the scope of what you cannot use it for.
You want to flesh that out for us a little bit?
Well, I think that it's obvious from the statement you can't put the money back into the general funds, that you can't use this for roads, for schools, for parks and recreation, to the degree that it is not related to the health of the citizens of Williamson County. And I think that there is some question as to other general governmental functions, which is one of the other factors to be considered by the AG, is to the degree that the proceeds are used for special or general purposes of the governmental entity not contemplated by the private act. I think that anything that goes outside the public health, even as broad as that term might be, would definitely be prohibited uses.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me in the room, and I thank you for coming tonight, I work at Lipscomb University. I work in the Institute for Conflict Management. I'm also a recovering attorney. And I teach a negotiation class, and I also work in our class that's on civic planning and public policy. And in that field of study, there's this term. It's called a wicked problem. And a wicked problem it's almost like whack-a-mole. It's a problem for which any solution to the problem creates more problems that you have to deal with. Every public planning problem that comes to us is by its very nature a wicked problem. The most interesting and troublesome thing about wicked problems, such as you put a highway through a city, what happens then you don't know for 40 years, but you have problems that pop up along the way. Look at North Nashville. The problem with with wicked problems is this: you don't ever know until you do it. You can have every task force in the world, but you won't know all the problems you create until you do it. And my question to council, which was, won't we ever know until after all the legal challenges are over and an appeals court tells us what's going to happen, is that we won't know whether or not we can use these funds. And it seems clear to him that we can't. And frankly, my reading of the law, I feel the same way. But you won't ever really know until an appeals court tells you what you did. And I want to prepare everybody, because I've heard some commissioners here seem to believe that if we vote for this task force, we won't have to have a property tax increase. This is years down the road. This is a process, a careful process to study, to solicit bids, to go under contract, to perform under the contract, to deal with any legal challenges that come along the way. This is not quick. And maybe this is at best case some sort of 10-year Band-Aid where we rid ourselves of I don't think anybody in here would argue, an asset that's been used by our community. We don't know the problems it will create, and you can't study those in a task force. Commissioner Lawrence, in his opening comments, said if the law was rolled back, then we could. The premise of this task force is that the law was different. We need to change the law. I would tell you that from a process point of view, we've got this backwards. We need to let the state legislators change the law, and then does this task force make any sense? Why would you study something that is illegal to determine whether you could do it? No, you would wait until it was legal and then make a study as to whether or not you could do it. We are backwards here. It's a good idea if it's legal. It's not legal. I'm a no on this.
Follow up. You through? Commissioner Pear? See, Commissioner Dan, Commissioner Ryan, have you spoken to it?
No, sir, not yet.
All right.
I promise to be brief. I do have a question for Mr. Mosley, if I may. There's a lot of things we don't know, and listening to two attorneys go back and forth of what I do know and don't need a task force is, thank God I did not go into law. I do need a question from Mr. Mosley answered. So, listening to the two of you go back and forth, like attorneys, put it as if I'm a fifth grader in the schools that we're talking about. This is an attorney general opinion. It's got to go through the appeals court process right now. That's where we are right now. Is that accurate?
The Attorney General opinion is what it is. It is not subject to judicial review. An Attorney General's opinion is an opinion from the appointed Attorney General for the state. It can be persuasive on the courts if they were to look at an issue, but it is not binding on the courts. It's probably given more weight than my opinion would be given, but it is still an attorney's opinion and is subject to challenge in the courts. There is no active litigation that I'm aware of right now to determine the scope of the limitations in the Act. So what Commissioner Milliken was talking about was the idea that post-sale, that the challenge to the proceeds would have to go through the trial court and an appellate court to get clarity as to whether or not that scope was exceeded. I believe that was what his point.
Okay, so again, we're dealing with an attorney general opinion. There's no enforcement that's behind that.
Well, for an attorney general's opinion itself, there is no enforcement. There is enforcement if you, as a selling entity, violate the act in how you use the proceeds or in how you structure the transaction. And in fact, the act provides for up to a $1 million fine for members of the conveying entity if they violate the act.
Okay. That
And
helps.
that's individual, and that's not on the county.
Okay. That does help. I do, just as a point of clarity here, and I will not get into any long diatribe. I think everybody's pretty much covered the points, Mr. Chairman, as well as we could possibly cover them. But a point of clarity to Commissioner Milligan, I personally, maybe you have, I have not heard of any commissioner saying that we're not going to need a tax increase this year. If we study this issue, I think it's pretty clear on the 23 members that are here that we're looking at a long-term project here, that this is not something that's going to prevent us from increasing taxes in 30 days. And then the second thing is, I've heard quite a few people say, well, we don't want to lose the hospital. We're not going to lose the hospital. If there's someone that's going to come in and buy this, some private entity, they're not going to shutter the doors on Williamson Medical Center. I can assure you that. The third thing is, you know, I'm certainly sensitive to the feelings of the administration and to the employees of the hospital. But at the same time, again, if a private entity was to buy this, and that's if, a very big if, that we decided to eventually, someday, sell the hospital. And I can tell you this, if the task force came back and said that this was a bad idea, I'd be the first one to vote against it. I don't know where I stand with this right now, but we need answers. But I feel very strongly that if a private industry or private entity was to buy that hospital, they are not going to be firing all the employees. It's too large, they're too good, and I strongly feel that that's more than likely what will happen. But Mr. Mosley, thank you for the clarity. I do appreciate that, and hopefully we can move forward with this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's see. Yeah, Commissioner Kestner?
Yeah, I want to respond to a couple things. Commissioner Beathard asked, were there any hospitals that are interested? I've had 2 chains recently tell me they'd be extremely interested, one as recently as Friday night. That's one point. I also think that with all due respect to Commissioner Milligan, you know, I don't think we can really answer the question that we want to answer. I mean, the whole idea of the task force was to try to do some fact-finding and figure out what the facts are. And while I appreciate your delving into some of the detail, I think that would be the main goal of the task force, was to understand what the facts are. And then the last point I'll make is that it's possible to effect a transaction, I guess I wasn't very articulate before, and never trigger the restrictions, depending on how you structure the transaction. So it may be, you know, there's this conversation about, well, we would need the law changed. You may not need the law changed. You may not need the law changed at all. So, you know, there's a lot to consider, more than we're going to uncover tonight with just kind of a back and forth conversation. That was the whole intent, I think, of Commissioner Lawrence's resolution, was let's go figure out what we got to figure out and then figure it out. But we're not going to get the answer tonight, guys. It just ain't going to happen. Thank you.
Commissioner Danner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also just wanted to address a couple things. Since Commissioner Beathard put some things to a question over here to myself, I'd like to just mention that I have no intention of trying to beat up on the hospital as an asset. I am sensitive to those folks who are afraid of losing their jobs. I did get a call and an email from 2 individuals, and that's natural. And so I am trying to stay sensitive to that, while at the same time, as a mom, listening to stories about kids being turned away from our children's hospital to be sent to the other children's hospital is, it also strikes an emotional chord, and so I have to balance that. As far as attorney legal opinions, I have sought some, and but I can tell you it wasn't a lawyer, it was Representative Charles Sargent who suggested that we could use the funds for Parks and Rec when he spearheaded this, the amended law in 2012. So that's the information I'm going on. Again, a study might help validate some of those claims. I also have heard about some interested parties in buying the hospital. I'm sure there would be far more than 2 if we were to go through with this. And lastly, 2 more things. One is, I think that our legal counsel with Berger, Mosley, and Carson has done an excellent job, and I have appreciated their legal counsel for the last 7 years that I've been on this board, but it does need to be understood, and they don't deny, that they also represent the county hospital. So there is a legal conflict of interest if we were to sell the hospital. One day, when a county commission, whether it's this one or one in the future, decides to sell the hospital, it is clearly understood by all parties that the county commission would need to hire another legal firm to be able to enact that transaction. Again, doing a great job, and I appreciate them, but they work, their other employer doesn't want the hospital to be sold. So this task force hopefully would be able to seek some outside third-party legal opinions that we're all trying to wrestle to get. And lastly, Commissioner Bethard, with all due respect, I think you might have been thinking that you voted for this, perhaps, and I know you and I have been through this issue several times, but it has been brought to my attention that the last time we actually voted on this for a task force in 2013, Resolution 111413, you actually voted no. You might have voted yes. I think you, and honestly, I do have a world of respect for you. I respect you because you actually run as an independent and win as an independent. And I respect that you're doing your own research, and it has convicted me to go to a board meeting for the hospital, which I have never done. I've been pretty sure they wouldn't let me in, but it is a public meeting, and I do intend to take you up on that challenge. But I think you might have been thinking that you voted to declare the hospital surplus in 2011. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
Very quickly, didn't we just ask the legislature to give us flexibility on the nickel for the highway fund? And wouldn't us asking for revisions to this legislation, how would that be any different?
Well, the highway fund was a private act, and this is state law. This goes from Memphis to Bristol.
I thought the hospital was created under a private act.
Well, it is, but the law about selling the proceeds from the hospital is a state law.
So it's more difficult then, you're saying, to change a state law than
Correct.
this one,
Yes.
the 5 cents.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Well, I appreciate also the dialogue between Commissioner Milligan and council, and like Commissioner Kastner, I think that it shows that the need for the study, and it kind of feels like we just had our first meeting with these two guys talking, but and I didn't say that we would definitely be able to use the money for whatever we wanted to, and the reason that I wrote it the way I did was it says possible need to go to the state, because I don't know if we need to go to the state and change the law or not, but it does seem to me that the way the law was changed, that it was changed to make sure that a county could not have access to any funds related to a sale of its hospital, which seems to me to imply that perhaps before the law was changed that they would be able to use those funds for general purposes. So that's why I wrote it that way, and that's why I said there's a possible need here, and if we can roll it back, if that was the intent of the change, if we could roll it back and take that intent away, perhaps we could be able to use the money for general funds. That's all. That's the reason that I wrote it this way.
Well, are we ready to vote? If you're in favor of Resolution 61733, push your yes button and confirm. If you're opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Matt? Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Resolution fails. Let's take about a 15-minute recess. 10 minutes. Diane said she doesn't need 15.
We got a lot less. We just spent one resolution, sir.
I don't think you're going to get a whole lot more than that.
Check 1 2, check 1 2. 10, 9,
Okay.
There's
you're
somebody's
live.
pen.
That's mine, sweetie.
Oh, there you go.
You're live. Go for it.
Resolution 617-1, resolution appropriating $575,000 in the general purpose school fund budget from current revenues for related trustee commission. Commissioner Webb?
Not here.
Yep, Paul Webb's doing that. School board, 12-4-0 against. Education committee?
4-0 against.
Budget committee?
5-4-0 against.
Can you explain that, Commissioner Webb?
This is the commission go with the trustees. It's normal. This relates to the amount collected related to the property tax, and this is the going to the general purpose school fund budget. And it shows here 575 for the property tax and then 575 for the trustees commission.
Yeah, that's a good thing. All right. Any questions? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 617-1, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
Funding for the schools.
Whoop, I'm sorry.
570
Commissioner Lawrence.
to move to the trustee commission.
Okay. All right, resolution passes. Resolution 617-2, resolution appropriating $250,000 in the 2016-17 general purpose school operating budget for workman compensation insurance claims.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Little, the second. School board, 12-4-0 against. Education committee?
4-4-0 against.
Budget committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Webb.
This is a projection based on future payments for anticipated accrual of workers' comp for this year that will come from excess property tax collections amount of $250,000.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 617-2, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Resolution passes. Resolution 617-3, resolution appropriating $366,400 in the general purpose fund budget from current revenues for related salary expenses.
Move for approval.
Mr. Webb? Who was my second? Commissioner Little. School board, 12 yes, 0 no. Education committee?
4-4-0 against.
Budget committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Webb.
As you can see, we've increased the amount for bus drivers to attract and retain bus drivers, and this is going to come from excess property taxes, $366,400 in the property tax, and you see the breakdown of the driver's attendance and their FICA.
Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question for Dr. Looney, if I may. Just out of curiosity, Dr. Looney, with the pay raise, have we seen less turnover with the bus drivers now?
Yes, sir. We've made significant difference for the first time. At the end of this last year was the first time that we were actually staffed. We had one bus driver for every bus that was on the route, so that was a good position to be in.
Good news. Thank you. Money well spent.
All right. Ready to vote? If you're in favor of resolution 617-3, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. One in every crowd. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-4, resolution appropriating $60,000 additional dollars for SRO officers from current revenues. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Little, the second. School board, 12-4-0 against. Education committee?
4-4-0 against.
Budget committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Webb.
You can see this is for SRO officers. This will be paid for from excess property tax collection designated for that in the amount of $60,000.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 617-4, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-5, resolution appropriating $470,000 from the Central Cafeteria Fund, balance expenses needed to complete the 2016-17 fiscal year.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Little, the second. School Board, 12-4, 0 against. Education Committee.
4-4, 0 against.
Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Webb.
As you know, the cafeteria fund is a separate fund, and so the food service director feels there's need to add funds for year-end food purchases amount of $470,000. This will be part of the fund balance.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-5, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-6, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 county general miscellaneous budget by $20,000, revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds. Commissioner Allsbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Little, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Allsbrooks.
Yes, this is moving $20,000 revenues would come from unappropriated county general funds to the Cool Springs Conference Center for end of the year.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-6, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Greg?
Brandon.
Mr. Marks.
Greg? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-7, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 medical examiner's budget by $71,988, revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds. Commissioner Allsbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Chalafant, the second. Public Health Committee. 5-4-0 against. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Allsbrooks.
Yes, this is amending the medical examiner's budget. Current expenses has exceeded that budget projections.
All right. Any questions? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-7, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-8, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant agreement with the state of Tennessee for a local archives department grant and appropriating and amending the 2016-17 archives budget by $3,752, revenues to come from state grant funds. Commissioner Allsbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Little, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Allsbrooks.
Yes, this is a grant that the Williamson County Archives has received. It's required 50% matching funds. That's the total of $3,752.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-8, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-9, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 library budget by $12,000, revenues to come from library fines. Mr. Whip. Who was the second? Commissioner Pear. That's his money. Library Board.
5-4-0 against.
Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Webb.
As you can see, we've collected a few dollars in fines, and we will use this money to buy some data processing internet services.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-9, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 Parks and Rec budget by $4,593.13. Revenues to come from participant fees. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Hester, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
Yes, this is amending the budget for participant fees for events that have been held at Academy Park Performing Arts Center in the amount of $4,593.13.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-10, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 Parks and Rec budget by $8,095.84. Revenues to come from donations. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
Yes, this is amending the Parks and Recreation budget by $8,095.84 from $7,095.84 from the Community Youth Association and a $1,000 donation which we received from Hyundai of Cool Springs.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-11, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-12, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 excess risk insurance to the county general fund totaling $730,314.88. Revenues to come from insurance recoveries. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
This is appropriating and amending our excess risk insurance. Revenues are coming from insurance recoveries.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-12, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 1 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-13, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 County Commission tax relief for the elderly budget by $50,000. Revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds.
Move for approval. 5-4-0 against.
All right.
And this resolution is for tax relief for the elderly. We've had more participants qualifying for the program, so we are increasing that line item.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-13, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 617-14, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 rural debt service budget by $50,000 for trustees' commissions, revenues to come from unappropriated fund balance. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Little, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
Yes, this resolution through Resolution 617-21 are all going to be appropriating and amending different budget items in different amounts for the trustee commission. The first one is the rural debt service in the amount of $50,000.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 617-14, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61715, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 solid waste sanitation budget by $2,400 for trustees commission, revenues to come from unappropriated fund balance. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Ricky Jones, second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
Yes, this is amending the solid waste sanitation budget by $2,400 for the trustees commission.
Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 61715, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 highway budget by $5,000 for trustees commission, revenues to come from unappropriated fund balance. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Little, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
Yes, appropriating again for the highway budget by $5,000 from trustees commission.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 61716, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61717, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 general debt budget by $45,000 for trustees commissions, revenues to come from unappropriated fund balance. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
This is amending the general debt budget by $45,000 from trustees commission.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 61717, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Sure. Yeah. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61718, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 county general fund budget by $180,000 for trustees commission, revenues to come from unappropriated fund balance. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Mr. Little, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
This is amending the general fund balance by $180,000 for trustees commission.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 61718, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61719, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 general debt service fund by $371,800 for interest payments, revenues to come from undesignated fund balance. Commissioner Osbrooks.
Move for approval.
Mr. Little, the second. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
This is amending the general debt service by $371,800 for interest payments. That's going to come from the undesignated fund balance.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of resolution 61719, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Oh, Kathy.
Kathy.
Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 Rural Debt Service Fund by $482,071 for interest payments, revenues to come from undesignated fund balance. Commissioner Osbrook?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones is second. Budget Committee?
540 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrook.
This is for the rural debt service, $482.71 for interest payments.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61720, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61721, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 county attorney's budget by $40,000, revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds. Commissioner Osbrook?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Budget Committee?
540 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrook.
This is amending the county attorney's budget by $40,000.
All right. Any questions? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61721, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Late file Resolution 61734, resolution appropriating and amending the 2016-17 capital project budget by $25,000 for ball field improvements at Fairview City Park, revenues to come from the city of Fairview. Commissioner Jones? Ricky, the motion. Dwight, the second. Who does? Did you have a question? Okay. Yeah, this goes at the end of appropriations. All right. Let's see. Y'all want to explain it?
This is just something that we've been working on with, I think Gordon's still here, but we've been working on it for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months now. They're wanting to invest in some capital improvements at the ballpark, and this is one of 2 $25,000 checks. They just asked to split it up, $25,000 on this budget and $25,000 on next budget.
All right.
And I'd like to be on record to thanking the city of Fairview for cooperating with us and working with us.
I'd also like to be on record. I'm glad to see him every time he comes by.
That's good.
Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of late file resolution 61734, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61722, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into an agreement with Waste Management for the collection of disposal of waste. Commissioner Osbrook?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Ricky Jones, the second. Municipal Solid Waste Board, does anybody have that? 4-0. Okay, thank you. Budget Committee?
540 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrook.
This allows Mayor Anderson to enter into an agreement with Waste Management, Inc. to transport, deliver, and dispose of solid waste for the county.
All right. Commissioner Ryan?
Technical question here, and it may be that I just overlooked it somewhere in the contract, but under Section 6, in compensation to the contractor, the fees are left blank. Do we know what those are? Under Section 6, compensation to contractor, the fees that we'd be paying have been left blank. Like I said, maybe I'm misreading.
What is the question?
Contract
Page
itself.
three of the contract.
I've got that, but what, I still don't understand what the
What are-
question.
What are we paying?
Oh, the transportation is, they come to our transfer station and pick it up.
No, I understand that. What
And-
are we actually paying?
Oh, it's $10 for the transportation and $23 for the disposal. There's also a fuel surcharge potential. That's an attachment to the contract as well, and it has an annual CPI increase.
Okay.
And
Do
they
those
w-
numbers need to be part of the resolution, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay.
Will you make a motion?
I'll make the motion to have those numbers reflected as just announced.
Nancy, what were those numbers again? $10?
Do you want my copy?
No, just tell me what we got. 10, disposal, 23?
It's 10 for disposal.
Oh.
I'm sorry, 10 for transportation and 23 for disposal.
Okay. And fuel cost?
There's a chart that goes with it, an attachment, so there's just a fuel charge potential.
Okay. I assume that'd be something like UPS.
Yeah,
does.
it's-
Okay. Nobody can figure that out.
1023 and then a chart that would be attached.
Do you want to make, somebody would need to make a motion to attach it, is what you're saying.
Do you want this?
Okay.
We need the chart to attach it.
Yeah. Can you give that to Jeff?
Mm-hmm.
And, yep, Jeff.
that
That Jeff. Yeah, wrong Jeff. Wrong. I forgot.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Second.
So we could voice vote this, Kate. All in favor of adding that? Well, first of all, let's see. Commissioner Kestner, did you have anything on the amendment? Commissioner Milliken on the amendment? Okay. We have a proper motion and amendment on the floor. So all in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So now we're back to the main resolution as amended. Commissioner Kestner?
Nancy, I think you may have a typo on the front page of this. It says Waste Management, Inc., a Tennessee corporation. I think they're a Houston, Texas $3 billion corporation, so I think we need to fix a typo. Unless they've got some Tennessee subsidiary, in which case it ought to be named Waste Management of Tennessee, Inc. or something.
I can't speak to that, I'm sorry.
I
They're
just-
all over the nation, and they are different.
I know they're
yeah.
huge, and I just know that they're not a Tennessee corporation, so that's a typo. And then on the performance bond, we've got $75,000. Is that just, is that like 1 month's revenue, or is that what's, I just was curious.
That would be approximately a month of what we would pay them, and
if they-
if we had to send it somewhere else, that would be.
Yeah, so if they default, we grab that and
Yeah.
pay some, okay, got it, all right.
Yeah.
So just the typo then is all I'm concerned about. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Milliken, you good? All right. Okay. You ready to vote on Resolution 61722 as amended? If you're in favor, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61723, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to sign a proposal with the Tennessee Department of Transportation concerning State Route 96 from State Route 252 to State Route 840 for federal project number STP 96, parentheses 12, and state project number 94011-1246-14. I forgot where we were.
Move for approval.
Okay, there we go. Commissioner Little, the second. Highway Commission,
540
all
against.
right, Budget Committee.
540
Great.
against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrook.
Yes, this would allow a construction project by TDOT from Wilson Pike to 840 South concerning Highway 96.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of all those numbers, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61724, resolution authorizing the county mayor to enter into a 2017-18 contractual agreement with the state of Tennessee for $1,150,200 for local health services. Commissioner Osbrooks?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Public Health Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
Yes, this is a grant that we received from the state of Tennessee. Williamson County is not required to contribute any funds.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61724, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61725, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to accept an easement from Paula Wall and William Carpenter to provide utilities and access to a telecommunications tower. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Jones, the second. Law Enforcement Committee?
6-4-0 against.
Property Committee?
6-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Sturgeon.
Yeah, this is simply, there's already an easement for Middle Tennessee on these people's property, and they're now allowing the Williamson County to have an easement for a communication tower.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61725, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61728, resolution accepting a donation of a 2017 Nissan Pathfinder to the Williamson County Sheriff's Office and authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute all documentation needed to accept the vehicle from Nissan North America. Commissioner Osbrooks?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Little, the second. Law Enforcement Committee? 6-4-0 against. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
It's the Sheriff's Office. This is documentation for the Sheriff's Office and the County Mayor to accept a vehicle that's been donated by Nissan of North America, a Nissan Pathfinder.
All right. Commissioner Tanner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Nissan very much for their continued generosity and partnership with the Sheriff's Department and the county at large. But because my husband works for Nissan and I do work in the Nissan building, I have an indirect conflict of interest and I will be abstaining my vote.
All right. Any further discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61728, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 1 abstained.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61729, resolution accepting the donation of a 2011 Kenworth T600 on behalf of the Williamson County Sheriff's Department. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Law Enforcement?
6-4-0 against.
Property Committee?
6-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Sturgeon.
Yeah, this is us accepting the very generous donation from JC National and Company of Kenilworth T600 truck for transporting other vehicles.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61729, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Yep.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61730, resolution approving and adopting a revised public records policy for Williamson County government and its different departments and offices. Commissioner Osbrooks?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Hester, the second. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Osbrooks.
This is revising the public records policy for Williamson County government and different offices.
All right. Commissioner Danner?
What, in the Budget Committee, I didn't hear this described as well. What are the revisions and why are we revising it?
Mr. Chairman, the revisions are based on a new state law. Williamson County has had this policy for years. It was recommended before. Now it's a requirement that you all, that the Public Records Commission pass, and it gets your blessing. The only thing different in the new law and the one that we have in place currently is now we've got another position that's called a Public Record Coordinator. So big record requests that come in, it'll go through this person, but day-to-day operations are going to be the same as they are today.
All right. Follow up.
Nope, that's it, thanks.
All right. Any further discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61730, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61731, resolution approving and adopting amendments approved by the General Assembly concerning Chapter 56 of the Private Act of 2012 regarding juvenile court. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Motion to approve?
Commissioner Little, the second. Law Enforcement Committee?
6-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
All right, any discussion? I see none. Now, this will require 2/3 vote. So if you're in favor of Resolution 617.
Don't you want an explanation?
Oh, yeah. I'm getting tired.
This is, you know, you might remember that we asked the General Assembly to make it so that our juvenile judge could appoint judicial commissioners, and they did. And this measure is just us accepting what they did.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61731, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change your vote? Huh?
You haven't finished voting.
Oh. I was going to say, there's one in every group. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 61732, resolution approving and adopting an amendment approved by the General Assembly amending Chapter 373 of the Private Acts of 1937 concerning restrictions on the tax levy for road purposes.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Who was in the second?
Danner.
Oh, Commissioner Jones. Tax Study Committee.
That was 3-4-0 against.
Highway Commission. 5-4-0 against. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, this is the resolution that we passed, we sent to the state legislature to ask them to untie our hands on the 5-cent road tax.
All right. This also takes a 2/3 vote. Any question? I see none. If you're in favor of Resolution 61732, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda. If there be no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Landrum already gave it to you.
Oh, okay.